Now, if you've not come across the term clean code before, let me quickly explain what it means and why it matters. It's a term that was made popular by Robert C. Martin, often known as Uncle Bob, and he's written an excellent book on the topic called Clean Code. And the idea of clean code is that when we're writing our code, we're not just writing it as input to a compiler. Instead, we should be writing it in such a way that the next person who comes to work on that code, which may of course be yourself in 6 months' time, can understand what's going on and can easily maintain it. You see, although as programmers we tend to imagine that we spend most of our time writing code, in actual fact we spend a lot more time reading it than writing it. In fact, some studies have suggested that we spend 10 times longer reading code than writing it. And so if we want to optimize how fast we can work, then making life easier for the developers who are reading our code in the future is one of the best ways we can do that. So let me ask you a question. Does using LINQ make our code more readable or less? Now sometimes I hear developers tell me that they think LINQ is less readable because the Lambda expressions look weird and confusing. Or maybe they're not used to some other bits of C# syntax like anonymous objects. And of course, any new language syntax can seem confusing the first time you come across it. But really, it shouldn't take too long to get comfortable with these language features. And if you've been following this course so far, you're probably already more than capable of understanding the C# syntax used in LINQ pipelines. And as we saw in Module 2 when we looked at thinking in patterns, many of the LINQ extension methods can go a long way to making our code more readable because they collapse many lines of imperative code into a single line of declarative code. So it's obvious that we're looking for the maximum order amount in this example, whereas in the imperative version we'd actually need to read through the code and think about what it's doing to work out what the intent is. But just because LINQ can make things simpler doesn't mean you can't make a complicated mess with it. And there's a few ways this can happen. One is simply that you've built a pipeline that has so many stages in it, it's hard to work out what the whole thing is trying to do. Another common one is to let your Lambda expressions get overcomplicated. In particular, when you start nesting more LINQ pipelines inside of Lambda expressions that are already inside another LINQ pipeline. When this starts to happen, your code can quickly become unfriendly to readers. And then there's LINQ extension methods like aggregate, which are super powerful, but often require a bit of thought when you're reading code that uses methods like aggregate to work out what the end result will actually be. So should we back away and stop using LINQ when things start to get complicated? Well, I don't think that's necessary. In my opinion, it's quite possible to make use of the full power and capabilities of LINQ and keep your code clean and readable at the same time. And I hope to demonstrate several ways to do this as we go through this module. So let's start off with a couple of LINQ challenges and see if we can not only solve them, but solve them in a way that's going to be easy to read and maintain.